I slammed my palm against that factory PA button at exactly 7:12 a.m. on a Tuesday morning that would change everything. My voice cut through the metallic symphony of CNC machines, spinning titanium like butter, echoing off the concrete walls of Callahan Precision Machining. This is Jim Callahan speaking. Effective immediately. I'm out, and so is your precious contract if you don't wake up. 67 years of life, 40 of them inside these walls, and this was how it had to go down. The control room overlooked the entire shop floor, my kingdom, my legacy, the place where my hands had shaped metal for F-35 fighter jets since Reagan was in office. Through the reinforced glass, I could see every face turned toward the speakers mounted on steel beams. 42 machinists, most of them wearing Red Sox caps despite my strict no Yankees fans policy, froze mid-motion with their Dunkin' coffee cups halfway to their lips. Below me in the conference room, the quarterly audit meeting turned into a freeze frame. Lila stood at the head of the table, her Silicon Valley slides glowing on the projection screen like some kind of tech gospel. 28-inch monitor, crisp graphics, words like synergy and optimization floating in sans serif fonts. The Pinnacle Defense executives stared back from the video conference screen, their DC, office backdrop as sterile as a hospital corridor. Colonel Marcus Harlan, former Marine, Quincy High class of 76, same as me, leaned forward in his chair, his jaw tightening. My granddaughter spun around so fast her designer heels nearly caught on the power cable. "Grandpa, what the hell?" Her voice had that edge to it, that Stanford polished venom wrapped in concern. But I watched her smile crack like thin ice on the Neponset River in late March, right before some fool kid falls through. I held up the documents, 3 pages, crisp white paper with my signature at the bottom, except it wasn't my signature at all. "You want to tell them about these, Lila? Or should I?" The forgery was good. I'll give her that. Someone had studied how I loop my capital C, the way my hand shakes just slightly on the upstroke from the Navy days when a hydraulic line snapped and caught my wrist. But I'd been signing my name on work orders since 1983, and I knew the difference between my hand and someone else's performance of it. Lila's face went 3 shades whiter than the paint on the shop walls. "Those are legitimate contract amendments," she said, but her voice wavered. The Pinnacle executives shifted in their chairs. That particular kind of movement that happens when millions of dollars start feeling unstable. I felt the rage bubble up from somewhere deep in my chest. That Irish fire my father warned me about, the one that got me through boot camp in '75 and kept me standing when Mary got her diagnosis. It mixed with something worse now, the gut punch of family betrayal, the kind that makes you question every Sunday dinner, every Christmas morning, every time you thought blood meant something. This shop was Mary's legacy as much as mine. We built it together after my father passed in '87, working 18-hour days while she handled the books and I handled the machines. We funded our grandkids' tuitions at Street, John's Catholic school, from these profits. We paid for Lila's Stanford MBA with overtime on the Pinnacle contract. And when Mary fought breast cancer for 2 years, when the medical bills piled up faster than insurance could cover them, we'd set aside a fund. A private account. $450,000, hidden in a separate bank, marked for emergencies. "Tell them where Mary's chemo fund went, Lila." Her eyes went sharp, defensive. That was a loan. "For R&D, for the AI systems that are going to save this company." $450,000. I let each word drop like a hammer on an anvil. Gone. While you stood at her funeral last year preaching about family and legacy and carrying on her memory. One of the Pinnacle execs cleared his throat on the screen. "Mr. Callahan, we're going to need clarification here." But I wasn't done. "You want clarification, Colonel Harlan? Let me clarify. My granddaughter came back from Silicon Valley 6 months ago with promises about modernization, AI integration, smart manufacturing, 21st century solutions for a 20th century shop. Sounded good, right? Sounded like progress. The machines around us started making a different sound, a higher-pitched whine, wrong, all wrong. Except she wasn't modernizing anything. She was packaging us for sale. Private equity firm out of Boston, 7-figure payout for her. Relocation to some industrial park in Tennessee where labor's cheaper and nobody knows the Callahan name. Alarms started blaring. 3 different tones, overlapping, the kind of sound that means something's going critically wrong on the production floor. Lila's untested AI systems, her cutting-edge algorithms, were choking on real-world manufacturing data like a computer trying to digest a wrench. Through the glass, I saw Tommy Reardon sprint toward Machine 7, which was spitting sparks. "Jesus Christ," Colonel Harlan barked. "What's happening to your facility?" "What's happening?" I said, my voice steady despite my heart pounding like the July 4th fireworks over Wollaston Beach, "is that Silicon Valley doesn't understand Quincy." And my granddaughter forgot where she came from. Lila lunged toward me, reaching for the PA microphone. I locked the control room door. The click echoed louder than the alarms. Standing in that locked control room with alarms screaming and my granddaughter pounding on the door, I made a decision. You need to understand how we got here. Because walking away from 40 years isn't just rage boiling over, it's calculated, deliberate, like plotting supply routes through the South China Sea, back in 1971 when one wrong move meant men didn't come home. Let me take you back. I'm James Callahan. Jim to everyone who matters. The guys at the VFW post on Hancock Street, the parents at the Quincy YMCA where I coach Little League on Saturday mornings, the bartender at the Irish cottage who knows I take Jameson neat. White Irish stock, raised in the long shadow of the Four River shipyard, where my grandfather welded destroyers during World War II. I enlisted at 18, came home at 21 with an honorable discharge and a skill set nobody talks about at parades. Logistics, supply chain, making sure fighter squadrons got what they needed when they needed it every single time, no excuses. The Navy taught me that precision isn't optional, it's survival. I bought this shop in 1983 with Mary's savings. She was a nurse at Boston Medical Center, tougher than the granite in the Bunker Hill Monument, with hands that could start an IV in a moving ambulance and a heart that could hold our whole world together. We took a gutted machine shop on Southern Artery and turned it into something that mattered. Callahan Precision Machining, our name on the door, our reputation on every part that left the floor. We machined components for F-35 fighter jets, titanium parts with tolerances measured in thousandths of an inch. Never missed a specification, never failed an inspection. Built it from 15 employees to 60, from $100,000 contracts to the big one, $22 million with Pinnacle Defense Systems. My father inked that deal in 1987 during the St. Mary's Parish picnic. I can still see him shaking hands with the Pinnacle rep under the elm trees, both of them holding paper plates with Italian sausages and peppers from the grill. That contract became our backbone. 60% of our revenue. It paid for my kids' college at Boston College, for weddings at the Marina Bay Yacht Club, for Mary's treatment when the cancer came. That contract was legacy. Family. Everything. Lila showed up last October. 34 years old, fresh off a plane from Palo Alto with her tech industry husband and 2 kids I barely knew. She stood in our driveway on Furnace Brook Parkway with that California glow, talking about rescuing Grandpa's dinosaur shop with artificial intelligence and automation. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. We had a family reunion at the Italian Feast of Saints that weekend. String lights overhead, the smell of Zeppel and fried dough, old Italian men playing bocce on the lawn. She hugged me tight, promised me the jobs were secure, said she just wanted to bring us into the 21st century, keep the Callahan name strong for another generation. I felt hopeful, stupid maybe, but hopeful. The doubts started small. Sunday Mass at Sacred Heart, sitting in the same pew where Mary and I sat for 30 years. Lila beside me with her phone out during the homily, thumbs moving across the screen, whispering to her husband about exits and valuations. The words felt wrong in that space. Felt like language from a different world. I tried to ignore it. Tried to chalk it up to generational differences, the way young people operate now. But the conflict gnawed at me every single day. I loved this girl like my own daughter. Taught her to fish off the Squantum Pier when she was 7, her little hands gripping the rod while I showed her how to feel for the bite. Drove her to Stanford myself. 17-hour haul, father-granddaughter road trip with truck stop coffee and terrible diner food. I was proud when she got that MBA. proud when she made something of herself in Silicon Valley. But her Valley buzzwords clashed with our blue-collar reality like oil and water. The twist came on a Thursday in January. I was working late, running numbers for quarterly taxes, when I opened the office safe to grab our insurance documents. Found a manila folder I didn't recognize. Inside were contract amendments I'd never seen, transfer documents, reassignment papers putting the Pinnacle contract under an LLC I'd never heard of. My signature at the bottom of every page. Except it wasn't my signature. I've been signing work orders since 1983. I know how my hand moves across paper, the slight tremor in my wrist from an old Navy injury, the way I cross my T's and loop my L's. This was close, damn close. But it was wrong. She'd forged my signature, planned to flip the company to private equity. Take the payout and relocate everything to some industrial park in Tennessee where labor runs cheaper and nobody gives a damn about the Callahan name. That night broke something in me. I sat alone in the house on Furnace Brook Parkway, the same house where Mary and I raised our kids, where we hosted Christmas dinners and 4th of July barbecues. Her photo from the 1996 Cladoff Festival stared at me from the mantel, her red hair bright in the summer sun, her smile so damn real it hurt. I poured 3 fingers of Jameson and let the tears come. My finances were already crumbling. The cancer fund was gone, $450,000 she'd taken for her AI research loans. Money Mary and I set aside for emergencies, drained like water from a broken pipe. My honor was stained. My legacy was being packaged for sale. Frankie called around midnight. Old-timer, been with me since the 90s, voice rough as sandpaper. Boss, you gotta see this. Her bots can't even spell ITAR right. We're gonna fail the next audit. That's when I knew. This wasn't progress. This was sabotage wrapped in innovation. I confronted her the next morning in my office. Door closed, just the two of us. She deflected with buzzwords about disruption and growth, about family businesses dying because they refused to adapt. But I could smell the sellout on her like cheap perfume. You're destroying this, I said. She looked at me like I was the problem. That's when I started planning my resignation. Live, public, during the quarterly audit when everyone who mattered would be watching. The world tilted sideways that night in my den, the computer screen glowing harsher than the neon signs at Adams Pub during Patriots playoff games. Bank statements spread across my desk like evidence at a crime scene. Line after line of withdrawals, all coded the same way. Innovation investments, R&D loans, emergency operational funds. $450,000. Gone. Every cent pulled from Mary's cancer fund. The account we'd built over 15 years from bake sales at Quincy High football games, from overtime shifts, from skipping vacations so we'd have something when the worst happened, and the worst did happen. Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, 2020. 2 years of treatment that insurance barely touched. Mary fighting until her last breath while I held her hand and promised her legacy would survive. That fund was supposed to be untouchable, sacred. Lila had gutted it like a fish on the Squantum Pier. My hands shook, not from age, from rage so pure it felt like swallowing fire. I decided right then I wasn't stopping at bank statements. Navy taught me reconnaissance. You don't just look at the surface. You dig until you find what's really happening beneath the waterline. I called Tommy Chen, our IT guy, a Quincy Tech grad who'd been with us for 8 years. Smart kid, knew systems inside and out. Tom, I need into Lila's cloud storage. Can you do it? He hesitated for maybe 3 seconds. Give me 2 hours, boss. Boom. 2 hours later, I was reading emails that made my blood run cold. Subject line: Final terms Callahan acquisition. Private equity firm in Boston. 7-figure payout for Lila. Complete relocation to California within 18 months. Workforce reduction of 70%. The Quincy facility would become a warehouse. Everything we built, stripped for parts and profits. She wasn't modernizing the shop. She was selling us out and moving her family west, while 42 families in Massachusetts lost everything. The rage boiled. But underneath it something else flickered. Something I didn't want to feel. Empathy. Was she scared? Desperate? Had I missed something? I thought about my own fears after Vietnam, coming home to a country that didn't want us, trying to build something from nothing while people looked at me like I was damaged goods. But no, this wasn't fear. This was calculated betrayal. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. Sean, my son, Lila's father. We'd been estranged since he supposedly died in a boating accident off Nantasket Beach in 2005, ruled accidental. Body never recovered. I never believed it. Gut feeling from the Navy days. Something felt staged. The phone rang 4 times. No answer. Voicemail with a generic recording. I hung up without leaving a message. The tension built every single day after that. The shop's annual St. Patrick's Day potluck hit on March 17th, and Lila turned it into a damn tech showcase. She paraded her AI systems like they were the second coming, screens set up near the break room showing real-time production data, automated routing, predictive maintenance alerts. The bots were making decisions that should have required human judgment. And they were screwing up. Badly. Parts coming off the line with wrong tolerances, specifications misread, orders getting crossed. The workers grumbled like traffic backed up on the Southeast Expressway at rush hour. I could feel the frustration building, hear it in their voices during smoke breaks outside. I made a decision that week. Anonymous tip to Pinnacle Defense. Nothing detailed. Just enough to make them look closer at our quality control. Enough to make them ask questions during the quarterly audit. The humor came from Frankie, as always. Old-timer with a gut that hung over his belt and a wit sharper than any cutting tool on the floor. One of Lila's bots mislabeled a titanium gear assembly, flagged it as medical grade instead of aerospace grade. Wrong specs, wrong heat treatment, wrong everything. Frankie held it up during lunch break, his voice booming across the cafeteria. "This thing thinks titanium's for hip replacements. Maybe your grandkid wants to turn us into a damn hospital supply company, Jim." The whole room erupted. Laughter that felt like relief, like pressure escaping from a valve that was about to blow. But the emotional peak came on a Thursday night at the VFW bingo hall. I go every week, call numbers for the seniors, help coordinate the monthly dinners for veterans. Lila showed up unannounced. Found me in the back office counting ticket money, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like angry wasps. She closed the door behind her. "Grandpa, we need to talk." Her voice was soft, calculated. "I know you're skeptical about the changes, but you have to trust me. This is for the family. This is about securing everyone's future." The lies stung deeper than winter winds screaming off Quincy Bay, colder than standing watch on a destroyer deck at 3 a.m. "Which family, Lila? The one you're relocating to California? Or the 42 families working in that shop who won't have jobs when you're done?" She flinched. "Just slightly. You don't understand the big picture." "I understand you forged my signature. I understand you stole from your grandmother's cancer fund. I understand plenty." She left without another word. The climax hit during a night shift the following week. System failure. Complete. Lila's AI network crashed mid-production, taking half our machines offline. We had a classified part for a F-35 weapon system sitting half-finished on Machine 12, deadline in 6 hours. ITAR regulations meant that part couldn't be late, couldn't be compromised, couldn't be anything less than perfect. We were looking at a violation that could cost us the entire Pinnacle contract. $22 million evaporating overnight, criminal penalties, federal investigation. Tommy and the crew scrambled, running manual overrides, bypassing the AI systems, getting the machines back online with pure human skill and 30 years of experience. We made the deadline by 11 minutes. I stood on the shop floor at 4 a.m, watching the finished part get packed for shipping, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might give out. My principled stand was cracking under the weight of family pressure, financial disaster, and the very real possibility that everything Mary and I built was about to collapse. That's when I knew the quarterly audit had to be the moment. Public, documented, with witnesses who mattered. Time to make my stand. I gripped that PA microphone at 7:12 a.m. with my heart thundering louder than the parade drums at the Quincy Flag Day Festival. But what nobody in that audit room knew What even Lila didn't know was that the third twist had blindsided me just 3 hours earlier. A phone call at 4 in the morning, burner number, unknown area code. The voice on the other end said 2 words that nearly stopped my heart. Dad, it's Sean. My son, dead for 20 years, buried in spirit if not in body after that boating accident off Nantasket Beach in 2005. I'd stood at Street, Agatha's church, delivering a eulogy to an empty casket while my grandkids sobbed in the pews. I'd mourned him every single day since, carried that grief like a stone in my chest. And now his voice was coming through my phone at 4 in the morning. I'm alive. I'm working undercover for Pinnacle's fraud division. Been tracking Lila's shell game since her Silicon Valley days. Dad, I need you to trust me. Do exactly what I tell you today. 20 years of anger, 20 years of grief, 20 years of thinking my son had abandoned us or died trying. All of it crashed together in my kitchen while I stood there in my boxer shorts and navy t-shirt, staring at Mary's empty chair. He explained fast. The debt he'd run from, the fake death that let him start over, the skills he'd learned that made him valuable to federal investigators. How he'd been watching Lila for 18 months, building a case, waiting for the right moment to move. Betrayal flipped to alliance in the span of a 5-minute phone call. Forgiveness warring with fury like watching the Red Sox blow a lead to the Yankees in the 9th inning. You want to hate them, but you can't stop hoping they'll pull it together. Today's the day, Dad. Make it public. Make it loud. I'll be there. So I decided right then to broadcast my resignation live over the factory speakers. Not an email, not a private meeting. Quincy style. Dramatic. In front of everyone who mattered. That's why I was standing in the control room at 7:12 a.m. with my hand on that PA button while Lila pitched her exponential value projections to Colonel Harlan and the Pinnacle executives on the video screen. My voice cut through the machine noise like a blade through aluminum. This is Jim Callahan speaking. Effective immediately, I'm out, and so is your precious contract if you don't wake up. The room below me froze. 42 workers on the floor stopped mid-motion. Lila spun around, her Stanford perfect composure cracking like ice in March. I held up the forged documents, let them see the proof in my hands. Then I started talking, voice steady despite the rage burning in my chest. I detailed every forgery, every unauthorized contract transfer, every dollar stolen from Mary's cancer fund. $450,000 labeled as innovation investments, while my wife's memory got pillaged for private equity profits. The room exploded. Workers started cheering like we'd just scored a Bruins goal in overtime, fists pumping, voices echoing off the concrete walls. 20 years of loyalty paying off in real time, watching their boss finally fight back against the suits trying to strip mine their livelihoods. Lila went pale as New England clammed chowder without the clams. Grandpa, stop. You don't know what you're doing. I know exactly what I'm doing. That's when the loading dock doors burst open with a metallic crash that made everyone jump. Sean walked in, 45 years old, alive, wearing a dark suit and a badge clipped to his belt that caught the fluorescent lights. Behind him, 2 more men in similar suits, similar badges, moving with that particular authority that makes rooms go quiet. FBI liaison with Pinnacle Defense Systems. His voice carried across the shop floor, professional and cold. Lila Callahan, you're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and violations of federal defense contractor regulations. The tension skyrocketed so fast I thought the roof might blow off. Lila's face went from pale to bone white. Her husband started backing away from the table like he could distance himself from the situation. The Pinnacle executives on the video screen leaned forward, Colonel Harlan's jaw tight enough to crack walnuts. And then the chaos hit. Lila's AI systems, already glitchy from the stress test we'd put them through, started short-circuiting from the overload, alarms blaring, machines shutting down, emergency protocols kicking in, sparks flying from control panels like 4th of July sparklers at Marina Bay. Frankie's voice boomed over the noise. Someone pull the main breaker before this place burns down. Tommy Chen was already running for the electrical panel. But I couldn't look away from Sean. My son, Standing in the middle of our shop floor in a federal badge, reading Miranda rights to his own daughter while workers scrambled around him to prevent a complete systems meltdown. He looked up, met my eyes across 50 feet of concrete and machinery. I walked down from the control room, pushed through the crowd, stood in front of him in that oil-stained aisle where I'd spent 40 years of my life building something that mattered. You should have called sooner. I know, Dad, I know. We hugged, right there, in front of everyone. 2 decades of grief and anger and loss pouring out in the middle of an FBI arrest while alarms screamed and machines sparked and Pinnacle executives watched on video conferencing screens. I felt his shoulders shake, heard him whisper, "I'm sorry, for all of it. We'll figure it out. Later, when this is done." Colonel Harlan's voice cut through the moment. "Mr. Callahan, we need to talk about contract remediation." I pulled back from Sean, wiped my eyes, turned to face the screen. "Talk, Colonel." Given the circumstances, Pinnacle is invoking the termination clause, immediate cessation of all work, $22 million penalty for breach of performance standards and security protocols. My phone buzzed 30 seconds later. Wire transfer confirmation. $22 million landing in the company account like a bomb disguised as salvation. I smiled, because that penalty wasn't punishment. It was leverage. I closed the deal that same afternoon in the boardroom overlooking the Four River shipyard cranes, those massive steel structures standing against the gray Massachusetts sky like sentinels from another era. My lawyer sat across from me, paper spread across the mahogany table, pen moving across signature lines that actually meant something this time. $22 million, Pinnacle's penalty money, my leverage. I used every cent to buy back full ownership of Callahan Precision Machining. No more shell companies, no more family saboteurs with Stanford degrees and Silicon Valley dreams. Just me and the workers who'd kept this place running through 4 decades of American manufacturing decline. The paperwork took 3 hours. My hand cramped from signing legitimate documents, the irony not lost on me after weeks of staring at forged signatures. But when it was done, when the final page was notarized and filed, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Victory. Pure and clean. But also reflection. Like winning the Super Bowl in overtime after your own team nearly cost you the game. The principled stand had paid off. Finances were secure. Honor was restored. But the cost sat heavy in my chest. Family broken. Trust shattered. A granddaughter facing federal charges. That's when I made the decision that would define everything. I called a mandatory meeting for the next morning. All 42 workers. No exceptions. 7 a.m. sharp. Same time I'd hit that PA button and changed everything. They filed into the conference room with coffee from Duncan and confused expressions, wondering if more chaos was coming. I stood at the head of the table where Lila had pitched her AI revolution just days earlier. "I'm giving you the shop." Silence. Complete. The kind that makes you hear the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Frankie spoke first, his rough voice uncertain. "Boss, what do you mean giving us the shop?" "Worker cooperative. You own it now. Equal voting shares. Decisions made collectively at annual meetings. Profits distributed based on seniority and performance. I'll stay on as a consultant, help with the transition, but this place belongs to the people who make it work." Tommy Chen's eyes went wide behind his glasses. "You're serious." "Dead serious. You've earned it. Every single one of you stayed loyal when it would have been easier to jump ship. You kept us running when the systems failed. You trusted me when I asked you to trust me. This is your reward. Your legacy now." The room erupted. Not cheers this time. Something deeper. Grown men crying. Hugs across the table. Maria Rodriguez, our quality control supervisor, covering her face with her hands. Frankie standing up so fast his chair fell over, walking around the table to shake my hand with tears streaming down his weathered face. "Jim, I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything. Just keep making the best damn parts in New England." But there was still one piece of unfinished business, one relationship that needed addressing before I could move forward. Lila sat in a holding cell at the federal courthouse in Boston. They'd denied bail due to flight risk. Her husband had already filed for divorce, taken the kids back to California, left her to face the consequences alone. I drove into the city on a Thursday morning, found parking near Government Center, walked into that cold institutional building with my heart heavy. She looked small behind the glass partition. Nothing like the confident Stanford MBA who'd walked into my shop 6 months ago promising salvation. Her hair was pulled back, no makeup. Orange jumpsuit replacing the designer clothes. She picked up the phone. I picked up mine. "Why are you here?" Her voice was hollow. "Because you're family. Because your grandmother would have wanted me to try. I stole from Grandma's cancer fund. I forged your signature. I tried to destroy everything you built. I know, and you'll face consequences for all of it. But when you get out, whenever that is, if you want to rebuild honestly, I'll help you. Not with money, not with a job, but with a chance. That's what family does." She broke, tears running down her face, shoulders shaking, the phone pressed against her ear. "I'm so sorry, Grandpa. I'm so sorry." "I know you are. Now prove it. Do your time. Get right. Come back different." I left her there and drove back to Quincy with the windows down, salt air from the bay filling my lungs. Sean moved back to Massachusetts the following month, rented a small apartment near Wollaston Beach, took a regional position with the FBI that kept him close. We started fishing again off the Squantum Pier on Saturday mornings, just like we did when he was a kid. The silences were long at first. 20 years of pain doesn't dissolve overnight. But we attended Mass together at Sacred Heart, sat in the same pew where his mother and I used to sit, let the familiar rhythms of liturgy build a bridge between decades of damage. Life became something I didn't expect at 67, satisfying in ways that had nothing to do with money or contracts. Consulting gigs rolled in from other manufacturers who'd heard the story, wanted advice on succession planning and worker retention. My other grandkids earned scholarships to Boston College, following family tradition without the weight of drama. Friday nights at the Knights of Columbus Hall became sacred again. Frankie raising his beer, toasting loud enough for the whole room to hear. To Jim, the boss who never quit. The co-op thrived. Workers voted on new equipment purchases, landed contracts with aerospace companies beyond Pinnacle, hired young machinists from Quincy Tech, teaching them the same precision my father taught me. I succeeded beyond the shop floor, stronger family bonds with Sean, legacy eternal in the hum of those CNC machines, in the pride of 42 families who owned their futures. Because success isn't revenge. Success is rising unbreakable, protecting what matters, and knowing when to let go so others can soar. That's the Callahan way. That's the Quincy way. That's how you honor the people who came before and build something that lasts long after you're gone.
Revenge never ends. It only waits.